In modern Scotland, two American tourists visit a local pub. There, they closely observe the famous photo of the Loch Ness Monster, but an elderly man tells them that the photo is fake and that there is more to the story than they realize. The couple sits at his table and prepares to hear the whole story. In 1912, during World War II, a boy named Angus McMorrow watches the water. He fantasizes about going into it, but the fantasies turn into nightmares where he imagines himself drowning. Back in the real world, Angus avoids the water, collecting shells on the shore. He thinks about his father, a Royal Navy sailor, who told him that the lake was a strange and enchanted place. Under the water, Angus finds a large, oddly shaped egg in the sand and decides to take it home. Angus is found by his mother, Anne, who tells him to come home. The boy and his mother return to their house, a large mansion. Angus runs to hide the mysterious egg in his father's gardening shed, while his sister Kirsty arrives, asking if Angus had fun at the shore and reminding their mother that Angus hasn't been having much fun lately. In the shed, Angus marks another day without his father's presence. He then removes the rock from the bucket and starts to wash it, revealing a luminous blue color underneath. When he runs to dinner, the egg begins to move on its own. That night, Angus is disturbed by a sound coming from outside. When he looks out the window, he discovers that the shed door has mysteriously opened. Angus goes downstairs to check the problem and immediately sees that the egg has hatched. In the dark, a mysterious creature runs around, hiding from him. Soon, the small being reveals itself to be a strange creature. Angus grabs a potato and starts feeding it, slowly winning the animal's trust. Noticing that the creature has a cut, Angus tries to bandage it, promising to take care of the animal while keeping it a secret from everyone. The next morning, Angus wakes up and sees a parade of military vehicles arriving. Believing his father has returned, Angus, his mother, and his sister rush to see up close, but Captain Thomas Hamilton reveals that the Royal Air Force has been tasked with taking care of the manor for a military operation. Angus realizes that these trained soldiers represent a threat to his new friend. As the soldiers set up camp at the house, Captain Hamilton explains that the soldiers are preparing for the threat of a German invasion. Angus goes back to the shed and finds the creature that has destroyed the place looking for food. Hoping to protect his father's belongings for a little longer, Angus goes to get some food for his pet, but the army cook, Sergeant Strunk, refuses to give him anything. Thinking quickly, Angus drags the trash can to the shed. The creature dives right into the trash can, eating practically everything inside. Angus decides to name the creature Crusoe, in honor of the book Robinson Crusoe. As Crusoe enjoys his feast, Angus begins to research what kind of animal is living in his shed, but none of the possibilities make sense. Angus remembers how his father told him about a mythical monster that lives in the lake and how he always wanted to see it. Angus realizes that the creature, which seems to be some kind of fish, is all dried out. He pours a bucket of water into the trash can, hoping to help the little one survive. A pair of fishermen on the lake are catching fish for lunch. They notice the military setting up the artillery battery on the hill. On the hill, Captain Hamilton explains that the officers have been tasked with defending against the threat of German submarines that have been found wandering in nearby waters. While wandering the grounds, Angus finds one of the soldiers, Sergeant Walker, holding a dead deer, once again realizing the threat these men pose to his new friend Crusoe, and he runs away. Anne enters the shed and finds the place in total disarray. She takes the moment to remember her husband, but is interrupted by the arrival of Lewis Mowbray, a handyman. Days earlier, she had tasked him with cleaning up the shed and emptying the place. And reveals that she suspects Angus is keeping a pet in the shed, something he clearly is not allowed to do, and asks Lewis to take care of the situation. The boy leaves the house and sees Lewis emptying the trash can, but to his surprise, Crusoe is not inside. Angus fights with Lewis, hoping to protect his father's workshop while he is fighting in the war, but Lewis insists that the workshop is his to do with as he pleases. That night, Angus walks the grounds calling for Crusoe, something Lewis notices. Inside the mansion, Crusoe, who is growing rapidly, explores the family house and accidentally crosses paths with the military dog Churchill, who chases him. Crusoe barely manages to escape, but the cleaning crew blames the military and their dog for the damages. Angus is about to give up the search when Kirsty lets out a terrified scream. He runs to her and finds Crusoe hiding in her full bathtub. Angus assures his sister that he will not hurt anyone and makes her promise not to tell their mother. She reluctantly agrees. And asks Lewis to check the guest bathroom and brings clothes that belong to her husband. He politely refuses, asking if he will need them when he goes home, but Anne reveals that her husband is not coming back. His ship was sunk a year ago, and he has been listed as missing ever since. Anne explains that Angus is confused, clearly unable to accept the possible death of his father. And Gus and Kirsty do their best to keep Crusoe, who is growing rapidly, quiet, but nothing seems to work. Lewis comes to fix the bathroom, which is apparently broken. Against Gus's orders, Kirsty lets Lewis in, where he immediately sees Crusoe. Lewis wonders if Crusoe is perhaps a water horse, a legend from Celtic folklore. According to legend, there can only be one in the world at a time, and when one grows old, before it dies, it lays a new egg that contains the next water horse. Gwen searches for her children, and Gus asks Lewis for help before and can enter the bathroom. Kirsty and Lewis distract her, claiming they were helping Lewis investigate the problem, and thanks to them, they have fixed it. And, suspicious but believing the lie, goes to the bathroom anyway, but inexplicably finds the bathtub empty and the water horse missing. Lewis helps to deceive Anne, having hidden the water horse in the toilet. Suspicious but believing the lie, and leaves the bathroom. On her way downstairs, Anne bumps into Captain Hamilton, who invites her to a dinner he is organizing as a thank you. She happily accepts. Lewis advises Gus to take the water horse out of the house and bring it to the lake, the best place for it, but Gus desperately refuses, believing that the best place for Crusoe is with him. On the night of the dinner, Anne rummages through her wardrobe and finds an elegant dress that she hasn't worn in a long time. In the bathroom, Gus feeds the water horse with canned fish. Kirsty interrupts him, telling him to go see what is happening downstairs, but as he leaves, Gus's makeshift solution prevents the door from closing. Crusoe, trying to grab the fish, falls from the bathtub. In the kitchen, the soldiers and the household staff dance together, but the dog Churchill senses a strange smell and runs toward its origin. When Gus and Kirsty enter, Gus notices that the dog has disappeared. Upstairs, the water horse wanders through the hallways until it encounters Churchill. Loose from its leash, Churchill chases the water horse through the house, causing much destruction. Upon arriving in the hunting room, Crusoe is horrified to find itself surrounded by stuffed and dead animals. Gus and Kirsty follow the sounds of crashing and noise. During the military dinner, Captain Hamilton and Anne hear loud noises throughout the house. Eventually, the chase crashes into the makeshift banquet hall, with Churchill recklessly running across the table, leaving a trail of chaos. Crusoe manages to escape unnoticed. Lewis apologizes to Anne and the soldiers, explaining that he was trying to catch the dog. Captain Hamilton, unhappy, expresses his displeasure, but Lewis refuses to follow his orders, so Anne commands him to take Gus to his room, something he agrees to do. Outside, Crusoe disguises himself as a statue, a disguise that successfully deceives the dog. When he finds a fountain full of fish, Crusoe dives in and begins to eat. Looking for Gus, Lewis intercepts him, promising to find the water horse if he goes back to his room. Reluctantly, the boy does as instructed. When dawn breaks, Lewis finds Crusoe now much larger in the fountain. He takes Gus to take a look. Then, Lewis and Gus drive to the large lake, and there he puts the water horse in its natural habitat, where it can thrive better. Captain Hamilton waits for Lewis in the shed and orders the handyman to stay away from Gus. In Hamilton's eyes, Lewis is a bad influence. While they are at the lake, two fishermen accidentally catch the water horse and see their small fishing boat being dragged. Reluctantly, the fishermen cut the line to save the boat. Taking Gus under his wing, Captain Hamilton promises to turn him into a disciplined soldier. After days of training, Gus runs away and escapes his oppressive military life. He returns to the lake and finds Crusoe, now fully grown, who is happy to see him. Crusoe lets Gus ride on his back, despite the boy's fear of the water. After a bit of swimming, the water horse begins to dive against Gus's will, but over time, the boy begins to enjoy himself, making the most of the fun with his friend, and thus overcoming his fear of the water in the process. When they return to the surface, the boy notices a strange metal net being erected, clearly a trap for submarines that may try to enter the lake. While they walk around, Churchill, the dog, breaks free from his military master and goes in search of the water horse. Gus convinces Crusoe to hide just as Strunk arrives, but it is too late. Sergeant Strunk sees the creature descending below the surface. Gus tells Lewis and Kirsty about Crusoe, and the three smile. And then meets with Lewis and thanks him for making the children laugh. Captain Hamilton, observing their conversation, is disappointed to learn that Lewis is a good man with an impeccable war record, being a hero at the pub. The fishermen excitedly tell others about the mysterious sea beast they saw, and the locals suggest that this news could attract tourists to the area. The next day, the fishermen arrive at the lake with a camera, hoping to take a picture of the creature in the hopes of getting rich. Meanwhile, Captain Hamilton takes Anne and the children to see what they are doing at the lake. Hamilton reveals that the military is about to practice firing cannons into the lake. And Gus tells his mother about the creature in the lake, but she does not believe him. Kirsty supports him, but it does not help. The cannons are fired into the lake, many almost hitting Crusoe. And Gus tries to stop the firing, irritating Hamilton. After telling him that her son needs discipline, the family is sent home. Realizing that the creature will never emerge again after the shelling, the fishermen decide to forge a fake photo of the Loch Ness Monster, the famous surgeon's photo. For a month, and Gus is sent to his room at 6 every night and cannot come out. Seeing the fake photo in the newspaper, Sergeant Strunk reveals that it's exactly what he saw in the lake. Sergeant Walker enthusiastically promises to hunt down the creature. Kirsty discreetly frees Gus from his prison in the room with Lewis's help. They go to the lake, where Gus calls for Crusoe. The water horse emerges furiously, roaring and biting toward Gus. Even so, Gus tries to reconnect with his friend, still haunted by the shelling and the near-death experience. Crusoe almost bites the boy's hand off before disappearing into the water. Having sensed the smell of the water horse, Churchill leads the soldiers to the lake. The soldiers enter the water armed with harpoons. Crusoe approaches the shore and kills the dog, then surprises the soldiers but is scared off by gunfire. One of them sends out a distress call, but Crusoe attacks again, and this time upturns the boat before retreating. Hamilton apologizes to but is interrupted by the distress call. Believing that the Germans are attacking, Hamilton orders and the children to go to the cellar. Upon discovering that Gus is in the lake, and prepares to go after him, going against Hamilton's orders. In the lake, Crusoe terrorizes and almost kills the soldiers while Gus tries to stop the carnage by entering the water, but Gus slips on a rock, slides under the water, and passes out. Crusoe dives, grabs him, saves his life, and leaves him on the shore with Lewis. The man tries to wake the boy while the creature watches closely. Hamilton takes into the lake, ordering his men to shoot at will if they see anything moving in the water. While unconscious, Gus recalls his last interaction with his father, who asked him to be strong and confident. Gus catches his breath and is glad to see his old friend again, now much less aggressive. The water horse disappears into the water as and Hamilton arrive. Gus and the soldiers try to explain everything that happened, but it becomes clear that no one believes them, and accuses Lewis of putting nonsense into her children's heads, insisting that there are no monsters or magic, only war and death. And turns and sees the gigantic creature, proving that she was wrong. Gus insists that the water horse is peaceful, but the moment is interrupted by another cannon shot. Gus tries to save Crusoe, jumping onto the back of the water horse, hoping that they won't shoot at him. His mother, terrified, is forced to watch as the cannons fire. Hamilton and Lewis drive toward the submerged net while the soldiers continue the violent attack. Gus does his best to guide Crusoe past the net amid the barrage of cannon fire, but the stormy weather causes the soldiers to confuse Crusoe's neck with a submarine periscope and they continue the attack. And the others grab a military boat and head to rescue Gus, who, along with the aquatic creature, realizes they have to go underwater, and they almost reach the net. Still believing it is a German submarine, the soldiers begin to raise the nets to capture the target. Gus and Crusoe encounter the raised barrier, leaving them trapped. Hamilton and Lewis arrive, encouraging Gus to let his friend go. Reluctantly, Gus releases the best friend he ever had and returns to his family. Crusoe dives into the depths and leaps triumphantly over the net, using his great weight to topple the military equipment in the process. Then, Crusoe disappears into the water, leaving Gus happy. The next day, and Gus watch the sunrise over the lake. Gus finally accepts that his father is not coming home, and the group gathers to see the water horse swimming to freedom. The water horse lets out one last roar and dives into the water for the last time. In the present day, the old man explains that some claim to have seen such a creature in recent years, but Gus never saw it again, and he knows this because he is the boy from the story. The tourists leave the pub satisfied with the tale. Outside, a worried young mother searches for her son William, who is walking along the beach. He spots a large unusual rock that looks exactly like the egg Gus found, concluding that Crusoe died and left a descendant, which will soon be born and become the next Loch Ness Monster.